So we're gonna show you how to set up for a 1v1 match. To get it started for 1v1 match, you kind of have to have a deck that's built from 20 to 30 cards in your main deck. This includes the 3 will you start off with for each champion. Since it's a 1v1, 3 will. You have up to 5 cards in your inventory. This can be weapons, potions, and a stone card if you have them, or even union cards. And then of course you need your champion. Basically the point of the game is to reduce your opponent's champion's HP down to 0, and then you would win the game. So for this game, we have this all set up. He has it set up. We already flipped the coin. I'm gonna go first. So for the beginning turn, I'm drawing up to 5 cards. For demonstration purposes, I am going to show all my cards, just so you get an idea of what I would do in a normal setting. So to play this game, a lot of skills that you're going to be using requires what's called a will cost. For example, here, this mountain strength, it costs 5 will costs to actually be able to play this card. To be able to gain resources, which is our will of the universe, we have to actually play these in these activity zones, which is up top. As you notice, there's 5 different spots. Each turn, I could basically play up to 5 cards, unless I am able to take one off. So I'm gonna go ahead and activate those so I can bring those to my will zone. Next, I have here what's called defensive skill, which is roll. Roll allows me to evade either an offensive range or an offensive spell card. The way defensive skills are placed is you have to place them face down, and if your opponent uses one of those things to activate it, you can activate it on their turn. Next, I have 2 cards that I'm not going to use or don't have a reason to use them at this point in time. So to be able to draw more cards, one thing I could do is just put them face down. This works as kind of like a bluff, because your opponent probably doesn't know that that's going to be a spell or something you're trying to get rid of your hand. They might think it's a defensive, but I want to get rid of it so I can draw more cards next turn. Now, if I do want to keep one, I will just keep this in my hand. And for this example, I will keep this face down so they won't know what I'm using this. Now, finally, in the very first couple of turns of the round, which is where both champions go, only the very last champion in the round can attack. So in this case, I won't be able to use what's called my action phase to attack my opponent. However, I have to be wary because he's the last champion to go, or this is the last champion to go, so they would be able to attack me. So since I can't attack, one thing I like to do is go ahead and equip a weapon. So with this, I'm going to go ahead and equip my champion, Lamorak, with the Battle Great Axe. Now, the reason I'm able to use this equipment is because Lamorak is an SS champion, and this is an A prerequisite. So he's within the limits to actually go there. Our ranking system goes from a B to an A, from an A to an S, to a double S, to an S3. And since an SS is higher than an A, he can equip this weapon. Next, there's also a matching restrictions on the bottom. For Lamorak, he has a matching restriction for Tactician, so he's able to actually use this card. Now, because I have it equipped, he gains all his stats from there as well, which is the 15 attack and the 2 extra striking skills. Each weapon also comes with an effect. I'm gonna go ahead and equip him with this, and now I just boost his attack. And since I have nothing else I could do for my turn, I'm gonna go ahead and end my turn and pass over to my opponent.
All right, for my turn, I do the same thing. For the beginning of the turn, I'm going to draw 5 cards. And I'll show you my 5 cards as well. I'm going to activate Will, so that way at the end of the turn, it will go to my resource pool, the Will Zone. I'm going to place 2 skills face down. Again, it's the first round So I can technically attack my opponent since I'm the last champion to act this round. However, I'm going to access my inventory to equip Abigail with a weapon. I will equip Abigail with the battle shield. And just like my opponent's champion, Abigail is able to equip this battle shield because Abigail is an S rank champion and the battle shield is an A rank weapon. Also, the restrictions on the weapon match Abigail's class, so Abigail is able to equip the weapon. To end my turn, I will put one card face down and I'll pass to my opponent. At the end of my turn, every card that I've activated in my activity zone will move from the activity area. So will be moved to the will zone. And then I will pass to my opponent.
Thank you. So beginning a normal turn goes in this order. Any will that I played, I would get that immediately back. So say I use activated a card and it's here, you only get this back at the beginning of your turn. Next, if I had any card in cooldown, they would move over. This is because since Lemrak is my lead champion, the champion the furthest left, every time his turn comes up in the beginning, I move a card for a cooldown zone by 1. So 4 to 3, 3 to 2, 2 to 1, and 1 to the library. Finally, I have to deal with this clearing phase, which is basically my activity zone going away. Now, if I want to keep a card on the field to use for a future use, say I want to use roll for a later time and keep it on the field, what I have to do is I have to sacrifice one of my will and place it on here. This is what's called charging or storing a card. Next, if I don't want to keep a card on the field, like this Mountain Strength, then I will have to put it to the corresponding cooldown count or CC, which is 3 for this card. So I put it in the matching zone. After that, we can begin our turn like normal as always. So I have 1 card in my hand. You're always going to draw up to 5 cards. So for this one, I would draw 4. Now, just because you have 5 cards in your hand, if you start your turn, doesn't mean you won't be able to draw a card. You can draw still 1 card, but you always try to draw up to 5. So like before I said, I'm going to go ahead and show you what my cards look like, just for demonstration purposes. So I got another will. Luck is favoring me. So I'm going to go ahead and activate that will so I can move it to my will zone to use for a later time. I also have another defensive skill, but this one's a little bit different. This is called a charge block, which is one of the charge skills that you can have in this game. To be able to use this, I have to basically do the process of what I had for here by charging this card with a will. And then once I meet the charge will on there, I can activate it by paying the other will cost for it. So I have to have 2 of these will to charge it. And then I pay 3 will after I have those charges to be able to use this skill. Since it's defensive and I have to charge it, I'm gonna go ahead and put this card face down. Now, I also have another attack, which is Mirage Attack, which that costs 5 will to be able to use this. Unfortunately, I do not have enough will to be able to use this card, so I'm gonna go ahead and just hold on to this card for a later use. Now I have 2 different cards that's still in my hand. One is an Ion Spell. Now, these are very powerful, but they do have a will cost of 5, so I can't use it. But if I put it down on the field face down, I might have a chance that I can't use it again because it's a 1 TU. This is a little bit different than a cooldown counter because 1 TUs will go away and I won't be able to pick it up without a certain skill or anything like that. So I'm gonna hold on to this card as well. And then finally, I'm gonna just get rid of this mouse string so I can be able to draw more cards for my later turn. Now, since I'm ending my turn this way, I'm gonna go ahead and announce that to my opponent that I'm ending my turn. And any card that I did play face up, like this will, I will move it to my will zone. and I'll go over to you.
Great. Again, we'll start my turn by accessing my use will. It's going to return to my will zone. As my opponent demonstrated, if I had will in my use will zone, it would move over to my will zone. If I had cards in my cooldown counter, they would move over by 1. And next, I decide if I want to keep the cards in my activity zone. I will charge this card so it remains on the field this turn. I will not charge this card. This card has a CC of 1, so it moves to the cooldown zone 1. This card is an ally card. Ally cards and strategy cards cannot be charged, so this card will move over to the use card zone because it is 1 TU, and that's 1 turn use. Finally, I have 1 card in my hand, so I will draw 4 cards. So my hand size equals 5. Next, I will play 2 will. I will change Abigail's weapon from the battle shield to a Santewa. In this game, each subclass has a baked-in effect. Abigail is a sword saint. When Abigail equips a weapon, she can attack on the same turn. I will check my will. I only have 3, so I can't activate any of my actions this turn. I have a fireball that takes 5 will. I have a strategy card, and I have a defensive card. I will place my defensive card face down, and I will end my turn there.
Awesome. So, I'm going to go through the steps again. Since he ended his turn, I'm going to get any will that I place back. I'm going to move this cooldown down to 1, so from a 3 to a 2. And then I have to deal with this as well. So, I'm not going to keep this extra mount string, so it's going to go back to its cooldown counter, which is 3. I have this card that I wanted to charge, so I'm going to go ahead and do that charging for this right now. And then finally, I have this last card to deal with, which was the roll from previously. Now, I have to charge it again to keep it on the field, so I have to give up another will to keep that on the field. Once that's done, I'm gonna go ahead and start drawing. So I have 2 in my hand, so I get to draw up to 3 cards. Or I get to draw 3 cards. So I have another will. I'm gonna go ahead and play it. I have a defensive skill. I'm gonna go ahead and set that face down. And let's check my will. I'm starting to run a little bit lower in will, so I might have to consider what I'm doing with my charging, because this is will that I can't get back or use for this turn. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this Mirage attack face down. And then I'm gonna go ahead and end my turn for this and get this will and move it to my will zone. Back over to you.
All right. So I have no will to return to my will zone. I will move my slash from cooldown zone 1 to my library. Now that it's in my library, I can activate this card as if it was in my hand. Your library, you want to turn face down. That way your opponent doesn't see what cards you have. Next, I will decide if I want to keep these cards on the field. I do want to keep this card, so I will charge 1 card to it. This card is my block card. I want to keep it on the field just in case my opponent attacks me next turn. So I will charge it using 1 will. Next, I have 2 cards. I will draw until I have 5 cards in my hand. Currently, I only have 3 will. I will activate the card that I was charging before. The 2 cards that I used to charge the card will go to my use will zone. I will pay the will cost for my slash card. This card has a WC of 1, so it's a will cost of 1 card. I will attack my opponent with +2 attack. Each champion in this game has their own set of stats. Abigail's ATK, her attack is 22. Her DEF is 12, and that's her defense. SDG, her spell damage is 13. And her intelligence, the INT, is 10. When I activate an offensive skill or spell, generally it will tell you to attack using either ATK or SDG. Slash allows me to attack one opposing unit with +2 ATK. I'll add the ATK of slash to the ATK of my weapon, plus the ATK of my champion. Abigail's 22 attack, plus 10 from Asantewa is 32, plus 2 from slash. I'm attacking my opponent with 34 attack.
So just like my opponent stated, each champion has their own set of stats. Lamorak has 218 health, 21 attack, 19 defense, 13 SEG, and 22 intelligence. Since my opponent is designating that he's attacking me with attack, the way I would kind of mitigate some of that attack would be using my defense. If they use spell damage, which is SEG, then I would mitigate some of that number with intelligence or INT. So for this one, since you're attacking me with 34 attack, I would take away all of my stats and defense from that, which is 19. Now, with that, 34 minus 19, that's gonna be 15. That difference in the number will be taken away from my hit points, which is 218 minus 15. That brings me down to 203. Once I do that calculation, I tell my opponent that, hey, I have 203 health points or hit points left.
Great. Now I will activate a second card. This will allow me to combo a card to my slash card. In this game, you can combo either by name or by rank. Slash is a rank 9, so I can play another card that's the same rank, or I can attack my opponent with another slash card. In this case, I will play Sack Attack, which is 1 will cost. So I'll be consuming 1 will, moving 1 will from my will zone to the use will zone. With Sack Attack's effect, I can return up to 4 will from my use will zone to my will zone, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I can attack my opponent with plus 35 attack. 35 plus 10 is 45, plus 22 is 67. So I will be attacking my opponent with 67 ATK.
Awesome. So in this game, we've shown you that we have defensive skills that we can use. In this case, I'm going to use this to take away some of the damage because 67 is kind of a lot of damage. So the skill I'm going to activate to take away some of that is called Block. Now, since he's using an offensive striking skill towards me, which is Sack Attack, I can use Block, which I gain 45 extra defense added to my current stats. So I have 19 currently, plus the 45, that's gonna be 64 defense I have. To activate Block though, I do need to pay the will cost, which is 2. Now, you're doing 67 and I have 64 defense. That means I take 3 damage, which brings me down to 200. Now, since he actually still did damage to me, even though I use a defensive skill card, I now have, this card will not actually go back to my cooldown zone, which normally Block has 1. What he basically did is called shattering, or breaking my shield. So with this, at the end of this turn, it wouldn't go here, it actually would go to the use card zone. But for combo purposes, because combos work the same way defensively, I have to leave it on the field. So you did 3 damage to me, and now I'm at 200. You can continue your turn.
Perfect. Now that I've launched my second attack, I will launch a third attack. Since slash was a 9, this sack attack was a joker. In this game, jokers are wild, so I can change my joker to a 9. I'm going to activate Fireball, which is also a joker, so I will change that joker to a 9 as well. Now I've comboed with slash 9, sack attack joker, which was a 9, Fireball joker, which I'm changing to a 9 as well. I'm going to consume 5 will, because the will cost, the WC on Fireball, is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm sending my will from the will zone to the use will zone. Fireball allows me to attack one opposing unit with 55 SDG. So this time, instead of attacking with ATK, I'm going to use Abigail's SDG to attack. So I would take 55 from Fireball and add it to Abigail's 13, which would make 68.
So one thing that you may think of when you're actually defending is, I had the skill card here that was roll. Roll does take 3 will costs. And he is using an offensive spell, which is Fireball. But something that you have to pay attention to is the will count that you have in your will zone. Since it costs 3 and I only have 2, I won't be able to activate the skill. Remember, this will that's on the card already does not count towards the overall will cost. So, unfortunately for me, I actually have to bear the whole entire offensive spell damage towards me. So, you said it was 68. 68. Since he's doing spell damage, and I have an INT of 22, I'm going to take 22 from the 68. That brings me down to 46. Now, I deal that 46 to my 200 remaining hit points, and that brings me down to 154 hit points.
Great.
You can continue your turn.
To end my turn, I will play 1 will. Now that I'm ending my turn, every card that I've activated this turn will leave the field. The will go to my will zone. The skills and spells that I've activated will come to cooldown. Slash has a cooldown, a CC of 1, so it will drop to cooldown zone 1. Sack attack is a 1 TU card, so it will go to the use card zone. Fireball has a CC of 3, so it will go to cooldown zone 3. Now that I've cleared my field, it's my opponent's time to clear his field as well.
Awesome. So remember, since he ended his turn, any card that I activated as well would go to the respective zones. Now this normally would go to the cooldown counter, but like I said before, he shattered this, so it's actually going to go to the use card zone. Next, since now my turn is finally beginning, I get to do all the steps again to begin my turn, which is getting my will back, moving my cards down, dealing with my zones, which I do want to charge this one, but I don't want to charge this one anymore. Now remember, since I already got my will back from the use will zone, this is going to still go to the use will zone, and I won't be able to get it back until the next turn. Also, this goes to the respective cooldown zone. I also don't want to charge this card, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in the respective cooldown zone as well. After I'm done with that, I have 2 cards in my hand, so I'm going to draw 3 cards. Now, I pulled 2 will, so I'm going to go ahead and put those there. All right, now I have 3 cards still here, and I feel like I want to be able to prepare something for him later to retaliate. But for now, I have a problem because my health is getting lower and lower by a second. So, one way that you can recover your health in this game is by using items. For this turn, I'm going to go ahead and use a potion called Nutrient Banquet Low. This reads, I select one party member, and that party member gains plus 50 hit points. Now this is a gamble because once you use your inventory for normal champions, you will be giving up your action phase, so I can't attack you. However, the benefit of it is I do recover my own hit points from that, bringing me back up to 204. I have 3 and I want to draw more cards, so I'm going to go ahead and put this card face down. and then I'm going to declare that I end my turn, meaning I can move my will back to my will zone. Back over to you.
All right. I'm going to start my turn by recovering all the will that I used last turn. I'm going to move my cards over by 1. So I'm going to take my slash that's in cooldown zone 1. I'm going to move it to the library. I'm going to move Fireball from 3 to 2. Next, I will decide if I want to keep this card. I will be keeping it, so I will charge 1 will to the card. Next, I have 2 cards, so I'll draw 3. I'm going to play 1 will. I'm going to activate the strategy card Stake and Bait. Stake and Bait allows me to select 1 opposing champion and heal them for 20. So I'm going to select my opponent's 1 champion, and he's going to gain 20 HP.
Which that brings me up to 218. Now, to explain this, I initially had 204 hit points. The reason I can go over the 218 is because that's my maximum hit points for that champion. So instead of being to 224, I go to this maximum of 218 hit points. Go ahead and continue your turn.
All right. Afterward, I select 1 stored card from the Hill Champions Arena, and I reveal it. If the selected card is a defensive skill, I can immediately send it to cooldown. If it's not, it's returned to the stored position. I'm going to select the card he has all his will on.
And so this was previously the charge block that I mentioned before, which is a defensive skill card. So as this card states, since it's a defensive skill card, it will go immediately to the cooldown zone. Now the will won't go to my will zone. It actually will still go to my use will zone. I will not be able to use it until I get that will back my next turn. So you can go ahead and continue.
To continue my turn, I will play 1 more will. And I will activate a slash card from my library. I'm going to consume 1 will because the will cost is 1, and I'm going to attack my opponent with +2 ATK. 10 from the weapon, 22 from Abigail, and 2 from slash will be 34 attack.
So that would do 15 damage to me, bringing me down to 203. Now that's because I have the 19 defense taken away from the 34.
I will be ending my turn after the attack, so I will be moving my will to the will zone. All strategy cards are moved to the use card zone at the end of the turn. And slash with the CC of 1 will go to cooldown zone 1. And from there, I will pass to my opponent.
All right. So starting off, I move my will to my will zone. My cards move down, and once it gets to the library, I can go ahead and put it face down. And I do not want to charge this card, so I'm going to go put it in the respective cooldown counter. I have 2 in my hand, so I'm going to go ahead and draw 3 cards. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and play this will, because I do want more will. That's how I'll be able to use a lot of my cards. I'm going to go ahead and check my will counter just to see what I can possibly do with the will I have now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So not quite where I want to be just yet. However, I'm going to go ahead and activate this ally card. This ally card does have some really powerful effects, but to get the full benefit of it, using it with the champion that's on the field grants another effect for this card. So for example, with Lamorak and using his ally card War Games, I can select 1 tactical spell on cooldown or in my use card zone and move it to my library. But if Lamorak is an active party member, then this card lingers. I'll explain that after the effects of this card. But if my opponent activates a tactical spell or strategy, then you can send this card to the use card zone to nullify that effect. So I'm going to go ahead and play this card. And one tactical spell I have in there called Mountain Strength, I'm going to move it to my library. Now, I have 3 more cards, and I felt like I haven't attacked you yet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and use Slash for 1 will cost. With Slash, it adds 2 to my current attack, which is 2 plus 21, 23. 23 plus the 15 my weapon gives me makes 36. And I'm going to attack you, sorry, 38. I'm going to go ahead and attack you with 38 attack.
In response to his attack, I'm going to activate my defensive card, Block. I'm going to remove the will that I used to charge it, and I'm going to pay the will cost of 2 by consuming 2 will from my will zone. Block is going to give me an extra defense of 45, so I would add the 45 from Block to the 12 of Abigail and the 2 from my weapon. So 45 plus 14 is 59, so I have 59 defense.
Awesome. So unfortunately my attack did not go through. The last thing I want to do, since I have this card back again, I'm going to go ahead and put it face down just to prepare it again. And then from that, I'm going to keep these 2 in my hand, but I'm going to end my turn there. Now, my cards do go to their respective zones. Normally, with ally cards, they're usually a 1 TU, usually. So it would normally go here. However, with the added effect, it does what's called lingering. So then I get to put this in what's called the lingering zone, which is right here in this crest symbol, meaning that it still has an added effect that still is ongoing during the game. After that, I'm going to go ahead and pass my turn over to my opponent.
I'm going to clear my field. Since my block was successful, it's going to come down to the cooldown area. Block has a CC of 1, so it's going to go to cooldown zone 1. And then I would start my turn. I would refresh my will. I'd move everything on cooldown. I have no cards to decision, so I will draw up to, or I would draw 3 cards to bring my hand to 5. I will play 1 will. I will attack my opponent with Dive Strike. Dive Strike has a will cost of 3, so I'll consume 3 will. And I will attack my opponent with 25 plus 22 plus 10. I'm attacking my opponent with 57 attack.
Great. I have nothing in response to that, but I have 19 defense to take away from the 57. That brings it to 38 that he's dealing to my hit points. Now from the 203 take away the 38, that brings me to 165. You can continue your turn now.
I'm going to combo Dive Strike with another Dive Strike. At this point in the game, I'm still comboing by either rank, because they're both 9s, or by name, because they're both Dive Strike. So I'll be attacking my opponent again with 57 by consuming 3 will.
Now with that, I have 165 health, and we've already did the math of how much it's taking away. So 165 minus the 38, that's bringing me to 127. You can go ahead and continue your turn.
I have a few cards that are in my library that I would want to activate. However, I'm going to place 1 card face down. I'm going to move 1 card from my library to the activity zone face down. And from there, I will end my turn.
So from that, I'm going to get my will back. My cards move down. And I'm also going to go ahead and charge this card. Being that I have 2 cards in my hand. I'm gonna go ahead and draw up to 3, but I only have 2 more in my main deck. This doesn't mean that I deck out like other games. I actually still in the game. I just have no more cards to draw in my main deck. So I'm gonna go ahead and play those 2 will. I'm also gonna go ahead and use a card called Mountain Strength. Now, this does cost 5 will costs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what this card does is I select one party member, and the selected member gains plus 65 attack until the end of that member's turn. If the caster's original INT or intelligence is greater than 20, then I gain an additional 5 attack. Now, Lamrak's original INT is 22, so above the 20, so I gain 70 attack altogether. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and combo that card with the slash. The reason I could do that is because both of their ranks are 3. This costs only 1 will to do. So from this, the way this will work out is I will go ahead and attack with 21 plus 15 plus 70 plus 2. So that would be 108 attack to you.
In response to his attack, I'm going to activate block by consuming 2 will, which raises my defense by 45. So I'm gonna take his 108, I'm gonna subtract 45 from my block, and then subtract 12 from Abigail's base, and then subtract another 2 from the weapon. So I'm only gonna receive 49 damage to my Abigail. And this will put Abigail at 105 HP. Since his attack was greater than my defense at the end of the damage resolution, this card will shatter at the end of the turn, meaning it's gonna go to the use card zone.
All right, and from that, I'm gonna go ahead and end my turn, meaning that my cards go to their respective zones. Mountain Strength at 3 cooldown, my will to the will, and slash goes here to cooldown 1. You can go ahead and start your turn.
All right. At the end of his turn, my block is going to shatter and go to the use card zone, and then I would start my turn. I'm going to recover my will, cool down my cooldown cards, and then I will charge this 1 card. Next, I have 1 card, so I will draw 4. I will consume 2 will to use Abigail's Mastery. Each champion card has their own specific ability that they can activate in battle. Abigail's Mastery is called Swift Phoenix. Once per turn, I can consume 2 will cards to reduce the cooldown position of all of my active strike and skills by 1. So any strike and skills I have on cooldown will be reduced, which means to move the card over by 1 to the right. I have 2 strike and skills in cooldown zone 1, so they will go to the library. Next, her mastery says, additionally, until the end of the turn, flame spells cast by this champion uses this champion's ATK as the SDG amount. So, Abigail's ATK of 22 will be used instead of Abigail's 13 SDG whenever I'm attacking with SDG this turn. I will activate Fireball. With the effect of Asantewa, I'm able to return 2 will from my use will zone to the will zone whenever a fire spell is activated. Next, I'm going to pay the will cost of 5. to activate Fireball, and I'm going to attack my opponent with plus 55 SDG. And because of Abigail's Mastery, I'm going to use Abigail's ATK as SDG. So it will be 55 plus 22, which is 77, plus 7, making my SDG attack 84. I'm attacking my opponent with 84 SDG.
So I'm going to be taking some of this damage because I have no defense in response to it. However, I do want to mention Lamorak's specialty, which is Battle Harden. So each time a tactical spell is activated, and based on the element of this choice, I get a certain stat adjustment for this. So since I activate Mountain Strength, which is a tactical spell, and that's a nature spell, I gain plus 10 intelligence towards my character. So normally he has 22, but in this case, since I use this and he's attacking me with spell damage, I get to have 32 intelligence altogether. Taking away from the 84, that's going to be 52 damage he's doing to my health. Now, 127 minus the 52, that's going to bring me down to 75 health or hit points left. You can go ahead and continue your turn now.
Next, I will play the strategy card, Lucky Pluck. Lucky Pluck allows me to draw 4 cards.
Just explain it because I have this.
Okay. Lucky Pluck allows me to draw 4 cards and add any will cards drawn from my Lucky Pluck allows me to draw 4 cards, add any will cards drawn to the will zone. The remaining cards are returned to the deck, and then my deck is shuffled.
So I'm going to stop him right there. Remember, I have this lingering card called War Games. So that other effect is if your opponent activates a tactical spell or strategy card, I can then send his card to the use card zone to nullify the effect. Since Lucky Pluck is a strategy card, I'm going to go ahead and send this over to my use will card zone and nullify the effect.
Since he nullified the effect, I won't be able to draw any cards, and its effect is not applied. Next, I will activate 1 will card, and I will attack my opponent with Dive Strike. I'm able to combo Dive Strike with my Fireball because Fireball is a Joker and Dive Strike is a 9. In this situation, I would change the Joker to a 9 to combo the cards. I'm attacking my opponent with 25 from Dive Strike, 22 from Abigail's base attack, and 10 from Abigail's weapon, which is 57 attack total.
Minusing the 19 from my defense, that brings it over to 38. 75 minus the 38 brings it down to 37 hit points left.
And afterwards, I will end my turn by moving all the cards I've activated this turn to their appropriate positions. 3CC for Fireball goes to 3 cooldown zone 3. Strategy card is moved to the use card zone, will to the will zone, Dive Strike 2CC to cooldown zone 2.
Back over to my turn. I'm going to go ahead and get my will back. I'm going to move my cards down. And I'm going to go ahead and charge this 1 card. So I don't draw any cards because I have no more cards in my main deck. But I have a big arsenal I can still use for right now. So I'm going to start this turn off with my Ion spell card called Twee's Defiance. I'm going to go ahead and pay the 5 will cost it costs to activate this card. Ion cards or spell cards are very powerful in the fact that they have a lot of interesting effects. However, I can only use 1 of those per game. And it's not per champion, it's per game. So only carrying 1 of them right now. What this card states is only defensive skills with an equal or higher level can be activated in response to this card. So I will allow my opponent to answer that if you want to use anything of that, but I'm going to read the rest of the effect for demonstration purposes. So with this card, I received 20 damage to my hit points. I have 37, that brings me down to 17. And until the end of the damage calculation, gain +5 SDG for each charge on the arena and send all the charges to the will zone. So I have 2.
I have 1.
That means from this, I gain a +15 to SDG. I attack with +75 SDG, and then during the conclusion phase, attach this card to the caster. So 15 + 75, I'm attacking with +90 SDG. With Lamorak's already 13, that's going to be 103 SDG attack to you.
I will take the 103 SDG and subtract Abigail's intelligence, which is 10 as a base and 1 from the weapon. Bringing the damage received to 92. Abigail's health is now 13.
So, from that, I'm going to go ahead and activate a card from my library, that second mountain strength that I have in here, which boosts my attack +70 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I can combo that because Joker in 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and activate a slash, which only costs 1 will cost. This is going to do the 36, which is my attack plus my weapon, plus the 70, which is 106, plus the 2, which is going to be 108 attack towards you.
In response to slash, I'm going to activate my block card by consuming 2 will. Block is going to give me an extra 45 defense, but it still won't be enough to survive the attack.
Awesome. With this hit points down to 0, this will mean that I am the victor of this game. Awesome. Good
Congrats.
game.